I don't get why people like tube amps. They're hot, they're heavy, they're expensive, they break. Oh yeah, and they're ridiculously dangerous. I literally don't know how these things are legal.
How is any of this legal?
And every time someone says they're warmer, all I hear is fingernails on a chalkboard when it comes to the mid-range. It's like owning an antique appliance with exposed electronics that you have on the floor that gives your pet a greater than 50% chance of seeing the afterlife. But here's the thing, I recently listened to one that doesn't make me want to throw it out of the window. Did I finally find a tube amp that I like? We'll get to that later. So sit down, grab a cup of coffee, preferably cam coffee, which is available in my store. You can use the link in the description. And let's start with the question that kicked off a century of glowing glass insanity. However, take 40 seconds and watch this next part if you want some free hi-fi and you want to help people.
I'm Scott Noon. I'm the CEO of Audio Advice. My wife was diagnosed with breast cancer when she was 36 years old.
And I'm Randy, I'm the Cheap Audio Man, and my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer this year. That's why I'm thrilled to be teaming up with Audio Advice to support this wonderful cause.
We're raising money for families with mothers battling cancer through the Helene Foundation. You'll see a link in the description that goes to a raffle page where we have tens of thousands of dollars of really cool headphones, speakers, projectors, you name it. And then Randy and I are going to do a live stream on October 30th where we're going to give it all away.
The sad reality is that we all know someone that has battled breast cancer. And this is your opportunity to make an impact on real people's lives. Whether you can give a little or a lot, you're going to make a difference.
The story begins in 1883 with trouble.
This is a special one on vacuum tubes, Bill.
It all started with a light bulb. In the 1880s, Thomas Edison noticed that a light bulb got dark on one side.
The electrons.
That was electrons, which are apparently tiny charged particles that were flying off the hot filament. So he stuck a metal plate inside and discovered that electricity only travels one direction. And that became known as the Edison effect.
But today it is known as thermionic emission, or the discharge of electrons due to heat.
Which became the backbone of every tube ever made. And that's how the first amplifiers, the first radios, heck, even the first long-distance telephone call can thank the tube. So when you see a glowing tube, it's not magic. It's a 120-year-old technology. It's a bunch of hot air inside, audiophile air. But those little glowing light bulbs in your amplifier will make your living room hotter than a public bathhouse in Las Vegas. If you want to support the channel, the easiest way to do it is by supporting the sponsors that support the channel. And a big thank you to today's sponsor, Boot.dev. Have you ever thought it would be cool to be a software engineer and learn how to code? Well, what if I told you that you could learn how to code by playing a game and having fun and never wanting to stop? There's a game that my daughter plays for her school, and you move a car that's racing by answering math questions, and she never wants to stop, which is really cool, and she's learned a ton. Because it's fun. It's so much like a game that you earn XP. You go on different challenges. There's bosses to beat. You get achievements, go on quests. And even if you get stuck, Boot.dev has a little character to help you out. His name's Boots. He's a wizard, a bear wizard. And he's your personal AI tutor that knows what course you're taking and what help you need by asking you questions. He just doesn't give you the answer. He just taps you back onto the right path with a series of questions. No hand-holding by Boots, a bear wizard. Listen, apparently this computer internet thing is not going away. So they need back-end developers badly. So why not learn how to do it by playing a game? Go to boot.dev/cheapaudioman. Use the code CHEAPAudioman and you'll get 25% off your annual plan. There's no risk because they have a 30-day, no questions asked refund policy, a free demo of every interactive experience on each course, and there's a Boot.dev Discord community where you can talk to other humans. So get started today. Go to boot.dev/cheapaudioman. Use the code CHEAPAudioman and you get 25% off your annual plan. Thank you, Boot.dev, for sponsoring today's video.
The vacuum tube that detects and amplifies the radio waves.
Tubes get hot, and that warm glow, it's not soul, it's inefficiency. It's a filament literally burning off energy. A 30-watt tube amp can pull over 100 watts from the wall. and the rest turns into a fire hazard. They run hotter than 200 degrees, which is hot enough to cook bacon or toast your cat. A lot of these tube amps come with metal cages, which should tell you something about how close you should get to it. They don't just sound warm, they are warm, because they're incredibly inefficient. So, if you're ever curious about tube amps, well, we should go back to where it all started. Back in the day, which was a Tuesday, tubes powered everything. Radios, early computers. The first long-distance call from New York to San Francisco was powered by tubes. Then came the 1920s, and suddenly everyone's living room was glowing. RCA, Western Electric, Marconi. They were the tech giants of their time. And after World War II, there were warehouses filled with these things. And hobbyists started using them to build their own amplifiers, their own radios. Fisher, Macintosh, Dynaco, Marantz all used tubes. They made everything sound bigger, more realistic. However, something cooler, smaller, cheaper showed up, and it didn't require an asbestos blanket or a fire extinguisher.
Don't worry, it's just asbestos.
Horse manure?
I love horse manure.
The transistor did to tubes what Henry Ford did to horses. You could park both of them in the barn, but with the Model T, you didn't have to worry about where you stepped because of the horse manure. I have an interesting story about horses. I will put that at the end of the video because it has nothing to do with audio. Anyway, transistors didn't really get hot. They didn't wear out, in theory, and they didn't explode. What a novel concept. And by the 1970s, well, pretty much every hi-fi manufacturer went solid state. Some audiophiles screamed, and so did some guitarists. They said it sounded too clean, too sterile. You see, those transistor designs, they didn't distort as much as tubes, but people kind of figured out that they liked a little bit of distortion. One sounded like math homework. The other one sounded like music. And even though the world moved on, some people did not.
I thought they were extinct. Extinct.
The audiophile nerds swear it's the only way to listen to vinyl.
Tube amps should have gone extinct decades ago. Instead, some became relics. Other companies continued to make them. Audiophiles said tubes sounded more alive. Guitarists said that they had soul. Tubes weren't nearly as perfect as transistors, but in that imperfection, it kind of was perfect for some music lovers. Kind of like vinyl. Objectively inconvenient, subjectively beautiful. There are whole forums dedicated to rolling tubes, like cigars. And this kind of enrages me, because it's like buying a car and then having to immediately go source some antique aluminum head, which is gonna make your car actually good. But you have to go find some new old stock somewhere in an abandoned barn. It's part science, part religion, part midlife crisis. But even religion has rules. And with tube amps, the first commandment is, thou shalt fear the voltage. Tube amps don't run off of 12 volts like normal gear. They need hundreds. 400 volts across a metal chassis.
400?
What can possibly go wrong? Touch the wrong part and you can meet every ancestor you've ever had. Even when they're turned off, capacitors can hold a charge for hours. They're so hot, they can scorch wood, melt plastic, start fires, and shipping one feels like you're shipping a chandelier filled with nitroglycerin. They're fragile, they're expensive, and occasionally they implode. So are tube amps actually as risky as bombs? Well, it depends on what your definition of explode is. No, they won't blow up your house, but they can fail fairly dramatically. If a tube cracks while it's hot, it can implode and it can send glass flying everywhere. Old capacitors can burst.
There is a capacitor on this circuit.
But the real danger isn't shrapnel, it's the voltage. I have heard that a tech said the only thing more dangerous than a tube amp is someone that thinks they can fix a tube amp.
So can you repair it?
Sure.
But for some reason, even with all the danger, even with the inefficiency, even with the cost, people still love them. People always say the tubes sound alive, which is ironic because, well, they refuse to die. They've been around for so long. That was a joke. But there really is science behind the alive sound, and that is even order harmonics. They don't just amplify, they literally add to the presentation of the music. When a tube is pushed, it distorts gradually. The edges of the waveform round off instead of snapping flat. And those even order harmonics, second, fourth, sixth order harmonics, they're mathematically related to the original signal. So think about it kind of like a bit of a pleasant echo. And our ears perceive those as being musical, as being additive, as being pleasant. The result is a bit of an organic shimmer. The result is a little bit more tangibility in space. But it's not all roses, gravy, and glazed donuts. So that tube amp magic, well, sometimes it can fall flat. Tube amps generally are pretty low power, so you have to pair the right speakers with them. And by right speakers, I'm really referring to higher efficiency speakers. And also the sonic characteristic of those speakers need to kind of go well with the tube amp. If the tube amp is a little bit harsh in the mid-range, well, then you don't want a speaker that's bone flat, because that mid-range is really going to feel like it's coming forward. Conversely, if you have a warmer tube, then you're going to want a speaker that's not, well, warm. Also, tube amps aren't great at controlling bass. The output impedance is a little bit higher. What does that mean? It means the low end can get a little soft, like an overripe banana. So your little 83 dB sensitive mic bookshelf speakers probably aren't going to be a good fit for a tube amp. Now, it's not a rule. I know people that use low efficiency speakers with tube amps and they love it. But one thing people cannot deny when it comes to a tube amp is that it has character. Not only the amp, but also the tubes that you choose to put in the amp. And I think that's one of the reasons why people love tube amps, but we will get into that at the end. For me, all this variability kind of made me not love tube amps. But what if there was a tube amp that I could live with? To me, tube amps are kind of ridiculous. They're hot, they're inefficient, they're low powered, they don't control bass well, they're dangerous, and the one that I like is super expensive. So what is there to like? Well, on certain tracks, they're magical. Absolutely kind of jaw-dropping awesome, especially with some vocals, some acoustic instruments, but to be fair, some electrical instruments sounded incredible. The re-recorded version of Santa Monica by Everclear. The guitar was so realistic, visceral, and just kind of hanging out in the air. It was addicting. And that's what I really found myself doing with this Prima Luna. Tube amp was just continually skipping to the next track, skipping to the next track. I just wanted to hear the next magic trick that the Prima Luna was going to do. The thought of owning a tube amp never really did it for me. Too much babysitting, too much biasing, which apparently you have to have dialed in just right, otherwise you burn through tubes or you're not using the tubes correctly. Either way, it's not something that I wanted to do. For me, with an amp, I just want to turn it on and forget that it's there. And that is one thing I loved about the Prima Luna, because I don't want to have to worry about biasing. I finally kind of think I understand what the whole hubbub is about when it comes to tube amps. And if I ever do get one, it will probably be Prima Luna. There is something romantic about a tube amp. There is something fun about a tube amp. The longer I'm in this hobby, though, the more imperfect gear I start to really enjoy. I love vinyl. Vinyl is imperfect, and there's a whole bunch of different variables. Tube amps, imperfect, whole bunch of different variables. And the thing I like about the Prima Luna is it's pretty simple. You don't have to change biasing or anything like that. If I want to go out and roll some tubes, I can roll some tubes, but as it came to me, it sounds pretty good. Pretty awesome. Pretty special. Kind of alive.
I'm still alive!
And even if in totality I'm not a tube guy, I get it now. The glow isn't just nostalgia, it's a heartbeat. Proof that music doesn't have to be efficient to be beautiful. Proof that imperfection is wonderful. And if that imperfection moves you, well, then you got the right amp. And if I think about it, I'm a little bit warm, I'm a little bit imperfect, a lot imperfect, a little bit fragile, dangerous all at the same time. Maybe tube amps are for me. Oh, that story about the horse. My grandfather, great-grandfather, used to date a girl that lived about 7 miles away from him. And he had a horse and buggy. And he would fall asleep. The horse knew its way back. So even though it was not very good technology, it's kind of one of the first self-driving vehicles. However, you have to feed it and then pick up its poop. If you like this video, make sure to check out my video about basically the history of Cambridge audio. I will put it right here. And Macintosh, I will put that one right here.